Alright, so we have game 7 here with special rules. It has to be purely Nocturne, and we keep going with a random starting player until one of us wins a game. So, looking at the board, I kinda wanted to play something like Werewolf and Money straight off the bat here, but I don't like how it feels to play Money sometimes. You just have to, rely on the cards itself rather than, making your deck in such a way that it is somewhat reliable. So I decided eventually to go after a more engine type strategy using Cursed Village. And what exactly? Not entirely sure what you use the Cursed Villages with. They don't work nicely with the Tragic Heroes because they blow up and die. Skulk maybe, Conclaves can help a bit with that. So it looks like Skulk, Conclave, Cursed Village maybe with some idle support. So we both go for the Guardian opening to get 5 on turn 2, which is going to be a Vampire. Vampire gains 5 costs, so definitely a key card here. Cobbler gains 4 costs, which is okay, but not the greatest thing in the world. I think I would rather concentrate on getting the 5 costs. Mostly the Cursed Villages. Perhaps Werewolf. I mean, if you have more than six cards in your hand, the Cursed Village acts like a Necropolis, but still Necropolis and Werewolf is okay. It's not terrible. Anyways, so I go get a Pixie here, and the Vampire will gain me a Cursed Village. I have to try to be very careful with how I gain these things and try to think a little bit more about the hexes and the impact they might have on my deck. We do have the goat around, which helps with, speeding things up. It's actually the only form of trashing on the board, so it's very, very important to keep your goat around. I hit my opponent with locusts last turn, so if I had hit his goat, that would probably be game over, honestly. Probably. Anyways, his vampire actually turns up war, and it misses everything. That's crazy. I didn't even know my deck was like that. Didn't even know my deck was like that. So he also turns in his vampire for a bat at this point. So it seems like we're doing fairly similar things here. 3 is gonna be another pixie. It should be another pixie anyway. And I'm gonna stick the Guardian into play here. The Guardian will see a lot of play here. There's werewolves, vampires, skulks floating around, Cursed Village. Well, it doesn't block the Cursed Village hex, but those other 3 cards definitely blocks those guys from coming in. So a second vampire for my opponent, which I think is reasonable. I'd like to get there if possible. It's important to keep in mind that vampire cannot gain vampire. So you have to buy those things outright. We'll take the discard effect here of the Pixie just so that this Cursed Village could draw a lot more cards. Better chance of finding the goat. And the gold is good. The gold is very good. I need money to buy things, so yeah, I'll have it. I will have it. So this is a little bit uncomfortable because you have to trash with the bat to change it back into a vampire. So this could have been another Cursed Village or another vampire, but I decide to just change my bat and trash 2 coppers and get back the vampire. I can buy another vampire a little bit later on, especially with that gold that I gained off the Pixie there. So a nice boon for my opponent allows him to find what he's looking for. He has a skulk, which means he has a gold. I managed to put a copper on top of my deck, which I am not happy about in the slightest. Not at all happy about that. These hexes, they can be pretty annoying sometimes. This one also forces me to put something on top of my deck, so that is not good at all. I don't like it. I don't like what's happening here. This has to stop immediately. This has to stop. This is usually a nice boon to pull up. I often trash Pixie on this boon just because it's a lot of money. And the buy is useful as well, especially here. I was planning to pick up a 5 cost but with all that top deck and stuff, I didn't seem like I was able to do that, but because of the boon, hooray, I'm able to do so. So thinking about werewolf here, thinking about vampire, thinking about cursed village, there's a lot of options here. In the end, I decided to make use of my buy and pick up Skulk and a Pixie here. Perhaps I should have gone for a Guardian there, but the Pixie is okay too. Pixie is okay, and the Skulk is there mostly for the plus buy, honestly. I didn't have any plus buy in my deck, and the Pixie was lucky enough to find it, so I decided to, make good use of it, get the Skulk in. My opponent already has a Skulk anyway. So that's not a good boon to take with a Cursed Village in your deck, right? So I don't take it there, just draw up a couple cards with the Cursed Village, and 4 is a decent place to buy a Conclave. There's also a decent place to buy a Skulk. So maybe last turn I should have picked up a 5 cost. Maybe. Anyway, so the Conclave is going to play actually very nicely with the Cursed Villages, because you could do Conclave, take an action card out of your hand like Skulk, then play your Cursed Village, even Conclave onto Cursed Village and draw, what, 4 cards? 5 cards? Something so. Some number of cards. Some number of cards. So there's Misery, the symmetry breaker, but I was defended by Guardian, so that gets, not used straight away. We'll have to see who ends up with that, if anybody, by the end of the game there. So here, I think I'm going to pick up my second vampire now. It's a bit late, but I think it's okay. It's not so late. And I will also turn this bat into another vampire. So I have a couple 5 cost gainers here, which is great news for me. I didn't manage to see the Skulk, which is too bad. I might have been able to pick up a Pixie here, or another Guardian. I really would like another Guardian. I would like to be defended every single turn. I would love that. I would love that. I don't want to have to deal with all this hex nonsense like this, copper, whatever. Especially Misery. If I could just keep Misery, I'll be happy. And here looks like a good place to pick up the second Guardian for me, and as well as a Pixie. So hopefully from here I can reliably stick a Guardian into play. Hopefully. I know the deck isn't quite under control yet to that point where I can reasonably expect to have Guardians in play all the time, but hopefully soon. Hopefully soon. In the meantime, my opponent, he's managed to build a bit more quickly than me. I feel like that's on the back of the second vampire. I feel like that's on the back of the second vampire. So obviously, going for the gainers very early is better for you. My opponent is coming through here with the advantage, picking up a couple conclaves here, which is very nice. Like I said, it'll help the cursed villages work a lot better if you could conclave actions out of your cards first and then play a cursed village. So he's doing really well. The second vampire really paying dividends for him there. He does buy a cursed village and it makes him deluded. Which is actually one of the few ways to hurt him at this point. It means that he can't buy action cards on his next turn. So that's a bit interesting. He can still buy knights, of course. And there are nice knights on the board in werewolf, really. He could go for another guardian if he likes. It's up to him. And on guardian, vampire. But he could also buy the guardian as well. So it's not terrible. But it does restrict him. A great deal. A good deal anyway. So I have to think about what to purchase here. I go for a conclave and I will gain a cursed village here with the vampire. There's a bit of technical difficulty going on here. The latest update to the client has this bug, rather time wasting bug here. Apparently when this happens you just have to click undo and it resets or allows you to play the game. I kept trying to reconnect, but that wasn't the solution to the problem. So we're back now. There goes Conclave, and I do get a vampire of my own here finally. So it wasn't a cursed village, it was a vampire werewolf. I keep getting confused between these vampires and werewolves things. Like Twilight in the corner. There you go. There it is, right? We were just waiting for the game when the two of them would show up and be next to each other. Vampires and werewolves. Welcome to Dominion Twilight. I looked at one of those movies recently. It's not that good. I think people overrate it. By people, you know what I mean. It's very popular amongst the typical teenage girl at whenever it came out. Anyways, this is Dominion, not Twilight. Concentrate. Right. So my opponent, he just managed to get a Guardian into play last turn, and he changed his vampire into a bat. So he didn't actually do anything there. So a bit of a stall turn from him. I'll take it. I'll happily take it. And it's important to keep track of who has vampires and who has bats now. As it is, only I have a vampire, and it's becoming a little bit more difficult to keep the vampire bat switching thing going on because we're running out of targets for the bat to trash, right? Pixie here allows me to pick up a Conclave, which is nice. I'm very happy to see that. It's a bit of money as well as being able to assist your cursed villages. So that's very good that I'm able to see that. And 8, don't think it's time for province yet. I think I should build up a little bit more, especially considering my opponent has a bit more of these action cards. He has one more werewolf, he has a bit more cursed villages than me. And again, I think that's on the back of the second vampire from him. So, you know, perhaps you want 2 vampires, because vampires, they are slow in gaining things, slow in trashing things. So maybe 2 is a good number. I'm not entirely sure. It depends on the board, of course, right? Always depends on the board. So Vampire Pixie and gaining a cursed village here. I kinda gained the cursed village at the end, you know, with the knight, with the vampire, just, I don't know, in the hope that nothing bad happens, or I mitigate the bad effects of the hexes. I don't know if that makes sense, so it's worth doing it that way at all. But here, I believe my opponent, here is where he starts going after the provinces. The idol is very good for him as well too. I mean, it gives him a bit more access to the boons, which gives him a bit more access to plus buy or gaining from the boon pile. So very nice for him. I was surprised here he didn't find his skulk for the plus buy, so he just has the 1 buy and he goes for a province here. And he turns his bat back into a vampire. Okay, so he has a vampire now. He's the only one with a vampire right now. Something to keep in mind, I should not be playing these wisps before the cursed villages because they can draw goats and bats and wisps themselves and make me draw less cards with the cursed village. So I should be playing the village first and then the wisps. Bit of inaccuracy there. But I felt like it was unlikely that the wisps would pick up anything, but I mean, I shouldn't be taking that risk, right? There's no reason for me to be doing that. Alright, so province number 1 for me here too, and I am able to turn a bat into a vampire. Now the vampires are very important as duchy gainers, I feel. So we have 1 each, but it's not clear to me how I'm going to turn my second bat back into a vampire. I don't think I have anything else to trash. Not a good turn for my opponent. It doesn't even come up with enough money for a province. It's just going to gain a vampire. He trashes one of my conclaves, which is kind of a big deal. It takes a chunk of money out of my deck there. I might have been looking at a province duchy turn in the near future, but with that conclave gone, I think that's out of the picture right now. So conclave into cursed village is nice. I can conclave into skulk here and then cursed village again. Very nice, right? Again, I shouldn't be playing these wisps here. I should not be playing these wisps. I do manage to stick misery on my opponent here, which is great. Very, very good news to see that. Like I said before, it breaks the symmetry, right? So he has -2 and he has to deal with that coming into the end game here. We're in the end game here. So he has to keep that in mind all the way till the end. I am able to see all of my deck here, which is great. I didn't expect to be able to do that, considering I was behind in development to my opponent. Draw through till the end here. I could have considered hexing my opponent with the werewolf, but I decided to go for a clean shuffle instead. and pull down our province and our pixie here. I'm only going to put the one guardian into play to try to get them to rotate nicely again. Maybe I should be getting two of them into play at this stage, not entirely sure. And here, this vampire is going to pull down our duchy for me. I think it's that time of the game where I should be gaining duchy. So my plan with the vampire is that, okay, this one will gain our duchy, then I'll have two bats. I'll use a bat to trash a bat, get the vampire back, and have a duchy gain waiting for me. There's nothing else to trash, really. Like, how else am I turning bats back into vampires at this stage of the game? You know? There's no real way for me to do it, and it's not like I could buy coppers and trash them, and even if I could, I don't really want to be doing that. The draw is kind of iffy with the cursed villages anyway, so why would I do that? My opponent trashes a pixie for a couple extra bucks here, and he is able to get up to double province this turn, so that is a lot of money for him. A lot of money for him. Double province is very strong as well. Except I lied to you all, it's not double province because he was envious. Even if he wasn't envious, I don't think he had the money, but it does mean that his gold is only worth one this turn. So he just takes province and the last pixie here, and I don't know, tries to hex me through the guardian. But no, the guardian is strong, he will not flinch. Good job, guardian. Good job, guardian. So now again here, we both all have bats, right? So we don't have any gain in power of the vampires. He gains an idol with his vampire here instead of a duchy. So perhaps looking for a curse into my deck at some point, or just looking to get more boons out. But he has the second idol now, and no vampires anywhere, just bats, bats, bats. Just tons and tons of bats. And here I make a mistake because I forget that I have a cursed village in play, and I forget that Conclave cares about that. Thought about asking for an undo, but this is entirely my fault, so I should learn from my mistake here. So I go for a guardian because I don't have one in play, and I pick up another Conclave to replace the one that was trashed. Another nice boon here for my opponent. Allows him, this time he gets up to the double province, especially with that boon from the pixie. Had I drawn there with the cursed village, things may have turned out a bit differently. Like I could have picked up a province, maybe. 4 of these 5 cards are good, right? So I would have drawn what, 2 or 3 of them. It would have made double province a lot more uncomfortable for my opponent. So that playing that conclave without thinking too much really cost me a bit here. Really cost me a bit here. My opponent goes for the same bat trashing bat play into vampire here, so now he also has duchy gaining potential. So I kind of shot myself in the foot there with that conclave play, but we'll see how things pan out from here. If I could double province, I'll win, right? But I don't think I can. I don't have the money, and I don't think I could draw everything anyway to do so. So here, now I'm being more careful with the conclave, obviously. I can't chain it to the skulk here, so that's great, but I won't be able to draw too many cards using these cursed villages actually. So that's not great. I do trash one of his conclaves, which is nice. 8, well, I think duchy is best for me here. Could be an estate, but I decided instead to go for a guardian, just to be able to put 3 of them into play for my next turn. I'm hoping to finish the game on the next turn there. Maybe with double province. Maybe. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. So my opponent, he actually only comes up with enough for a province here. Just the one buy, right? Just the one buy. So I'm 10 points behind. So we'll see how best I could pull this out here. If I am able to hex my opponent, and maybe give him another misery, which I know is coming up, or able to curse him in some way or something, that might help. That will help with the points difference. But he has freaking guardian in play. Jeez, man, not just one, both of them. both of them. And guess what? You know what the next hex was? Look at this. Look at this. Bang. It was Plague. It was the Curse Hex. But even worse than that is that I had a tie here, and I would have taken the tie. I realized it immediately after buying this duchy here, that I could have gone Province Estate, use Vampire to gain duchy to tie the game. Tie meant it would have gone to a game 8 here. But this is what happens when you play too fast and don't think about what you're doing. You squander points, you throw it away. So my opponent at the end of the game, he offered to, just call it a tie and play another one. But one, it was my mistake. I shouldn't be playing so fast. Two, I was kind of tired. We played for a long time. And three, well, yeah, I don't really care about making it to the finals that badly to want a game 8 here. So all my fault. The Conclave mistake, I know that mistake. That last one was really just terrible. Like, at least I could say, okay, maybe you're not accustomed to Conclave yet, but are you not accustomed to endgames yet? So that was bad of me. I do lose 4-3 here, and we bow out in the semifinals. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next tournament or something.